Right now, about one-fifth of the world's oil is moving through a war. The Strait of Hormuz is under attack, risk, prices are jumping, and you're already paying for fuel, food, and freight. Most coverage stops at hot takes and headlines. On global power shifts, we do something different. We use a structured method, three frameworks, to map the crises and build explicit scenarios with the probability assessments, not just expert opinion. In this episode, I'm going to give you three likely paths for the next 90 days of this war, what to watch for at 30, 60, and 90 days, and why my highest probability assessment is brutal but contained, not the end of the world. I'm Dr. Kurt Rasmussen. Let's get to work. On this channel, I don't ask you to trust my gut. I show you the structure that I'm using. We'll use three tools. Battlesphere to map the decision space and how it's collapsing. CPP to explain why leaders choose the levers they do. An SFI style lens to see which societies can actually absorb this shock. Then we'll build three concrete scenarios inside that structure. And I'll tell you how confident I am in each one and why. Picture this crisis as a single shared sphere. The United States, Israel, Iran, and the big energy buyers are all inside it. Moving at the same time along that sphere, five things matter most right now. How far the shooting spreads, whether tankers can move through Hormuz, how wild prices and shipping costs get, how much allies actually agree on what to do, and how much punishment each government can take at home. I call this the battlesphere. It's our map. Everything else in this episode sits on top of it. Inside that shared sphere, each major actor has a funnel, a slice where they have real options clustered. The U.S. funnel is aimed at containment of Iran, restore enough shipping to calm markets, avoid a full regional war, and signal credibility. The Israeli funnel points towards degrading Iran's capabilities and deterrence, keeping the U.S. closely engaged. The Iranian funnel is orientated towards imposing costs on adversaries, show it can still retaliate, and prevent regime collapse. The energy market funnel for the Gulf producers, Europe, and big Asian economies focuses on keeping volumes moving and prevent extreme price spikes and domestic unrest. At the start, the sphere was in an expansion phase. There were many gradations between quiet diplomacy, signaling strikes, escorts, and open war. Once senior Iranian leaders were killed and shipping came under sustained threat, the sphere moved into a collapse phase. Quiet options largely fell out, funnels narrowed around a smaller band of high-energy moves. More strikes, heavier escorts, and air defense. Cyber and proxy campaigns, and de-escalation under fire, not in calm backrooms. On top of that, there is a bleed, unintended consequences that deform the rest of the sphere. Energy shocks bleed into government budgets, corporate margins, and household costs. Shipping and insurance risks bleed into Asia's import bills and the price of traded goods. Alliance strain bleeds into NATO cohesion, Gulf hedging, and the trust in U.S. security guarantees. So the battlesphere tells us this war has already narrowed everyone's options and is exporting risk and cost to actors far outside the battlefield. Now zoom in from the map to the people steering these funnels. For that, I use CPP, a framework for how leaders derive and use power. CPP has three axes. First, intrinsicus versus extrinsicus. Intrinsicus, my power is me. Personal charisma, direct networks, the ability to bend institutions. Extrinsicus, my power is the office and the machine. Laws, bureaucracy, coalitions. Second, egoist intensity. How much the system is wired around personal survival, regime survival, or legacy. Third, altruistic intensity. How strongly power is justified as serving the people, the nation, or the faithful. These are risk profile sketches. They don't tell us exactly what a leader will do, but they tell us how far they are likely to push. In CPP terms, President Trump sits in a high intrinsicus zone. Communication and conflict are highly personalized, and alliance management is framed in transactional burden-sharing terms. Egoist intensity is high, altruistic intensity is moderate, and leader-centric. Iran's leadership has been a hybrid, high extrinsicus, formal theocratic institutions with a strong intrinsicus nodes, insecurity organizations, and informal networks. Egoist intensity is high around the regime's survival. Altruistic intensity is high in its deterrence and resistance narrative. The recent assassination shifted the mix. Removing senior figures increases the relative weight of security-focused actors, which can raise tolerance for risk inside a shrinking option set. Israel's war cabinet leans toward the extrinsicus. State, military, and legal structures. Egoist intensity is high in an existential sense. Altruistic intensity is strong around the defense of the Jewish people. EU leadership clusters are heavily extrinsicus, power mediated through institutions, treaties, and committees, with decisions justified as protecting stability and the broader European public within legal and political constraints. CPP helps explain why. High intrinsicus leaders are more likely to take visible high-impact actions and to pressure allies in public. A security-heavier Iranian mix finds public de-escalation more costly even as internal stress grows. EU leaders move more slowly, emphasizing statements, sanctions, and mandates before direct military commitments. We're not doing personality gossip. We're mapping risk appetite and alliance behavior inside the battlesphere. Now zoom down one more level. From leaders to everyday life. Here I use an SFI-style lens, societal functionality. We ask how well does a system keep basic life working under stress? We look at infrastructure reliability, power, water, transport. Economic sufficiency, can median households keep up? Safety and health outcomes, social trust and cohesion. In this war, the main shock channel is energy. Disruption at Hormuz pushes up prices for crude, refined products, and LNG. It raises shipping and insurance costs. It injects uncertainty into investment and planning. That hits functionality in three ways. It cuts real purchasing power, especially in import-dependent states. It stresses infrastructure and maintenance budgets. It can amplify unrest and polarization where trust is already low. There's a simple story that renewables automatically equal resilience. The reality is more nuanced. Solar and wind are intermittent sources. Many grids were designed around steady, controllable generation. Without enough storage, flexible demand, and a grid redesign, high shares of variable renewables can introduce additional operational challenges for stability and backup planning. So in this crisis, we should think in terms of buffers, not slogans. Diversified systems with robust grids and a mix of nuclear, renewables, storage, and multiple fuel suppliers have more room to maneuver. Gas-heavy, import-dependent systems that rely on LNG for power and industry are more exposed. Systems that are already fragile economically and institutionally have very little margin, regardless of their nominal mix. We can group societies into three archetypes. High functionality, diversified systems. They experience inflation and political friction, but basic services continue and institutions have tools. Gas-heavy, import-dependent mid-income systems. They face large jumps in energy costs, stress on industry, and sharpen political pressures. Lower income, fragile systems. They can see fuel shocks turn quickly into outages, unrest, and heavy state responses. Iran itself is on a fragile trajectory. Years of sanctions, inflation, and protests have thinned its institutional and economic buffer. The state can still act forcefully, but each new shock lands on a weaker base. You can get maybe it gets worse, maybe it gets better, anywhere. Here we do something sharper. We take that battlesphere, combine it with the leader profiles and societal resilience, and build three concrete scenarios with probability assessments. Then we'll tell you what to watch to see which path we're on. Scenario A, managed de-escalation, brutal but contained. So in scenario A, which is the managed de-escalation, the current probability assessment is about 60%. In this path, you pay more, but the system bends instead of breaking. In the next 30 days, naval escorts and air defenses stabilize conditions enough that some commercial traffic resumes under heavy protection. The strait is still risky, but not effectively shut. Over 30 to 60 days, back-channel talks and third-party mediation produce limited understandings. Certain targets are avoided, some red lines are clarified, and all sides look for ways to claim deterrence while slowing the exchange of blows. Energy markets stay stressed, but not at extremes. Oil trades in a high band and then begins to ease if volumes normalize. Major economies see higher inflation and slower growth, but no synchronized global recession. In bathysphere terms, funnels remain narrow but begin to widen slightly. In SFI terms, high functionality systems absorb the shock. More fragile systems feel real pain, but not systematic failure. Scenario B, prolonged disruption, the grinding squeeze. Current probability assessment around 25%. Here, prices stay high long enough to slow real economies and force hard political choices. Through the next 30 days, shipping remains heavily constrained, even with escorts. The risk from missiles, mines, and drones keeps traffic well below normal. In the 30 to 60-day window, there is no durable political settlement. Strikes, proxy activity, and cyber operations continue. Some infrastructure damage occurs, and insurance costs stay elevated. By 60 to 90 days, sustained high prices for oil and gas begin to translate into broader economic stress. Growth forecasts are cut. Inflation stays elevated. Recession risks, especially where households and firms were already stretched in the bathysphere, actors are stuck in a narrow high energy band for longer. In SFI terms, gas-heavy import-dependent mid-income systems with limited fiscal space come under intense pressure. Scenario C, structural shock, the break point. Current probability assessment is roughly 15%. This is the low probability path where parts of the global economy actually snap. In this path, major infrastructure damage and sustained risk perceptions keep Hormuz effectively unsafe. Through 30 days, attacks escalate on tankers, terminals, or key nodes, and traffic does not recover. By 60 days, markets start to price not a temporary outage, but a semi-permanent risk premium. Oil moves into extreme territory, gas prices spike, and demand destruction sets in. By 90 days, multiple regions face recession. Some fragile states face serious fiscal and social crises. Emergency measures, strategic reserve releases, forced demand cuts, and new financial backstops become central. In the bathysphere, much of the decision space collapses around damage control. In SFI terms, the gap between the resilient and the fragile systems becomes stark. These confidence scores are not certainties. They are structured assessments based on what we know today: military posture, shipping flows, market pricing, and how past shocks have played out. As those inputs change, the assessment and the confidence we assign to each scenario will change too. So what should you watch over the next 30 days? Does the traffic through Hormuz meaningfully recover under escort or stay severely constrained? Do direct strikes on leadership and infrastructure slow, plateau, or escalate? Over 30 to 60 days, do the EU and other allies move beyond statements into tangible measures, escorts, energy management policies, or new sanctions? Does Iran's internal situation show signs of stabilization or of further stress and fragmentation? Over 60 to 90 days, do oil and gas prices settle into a high but stable band or remain volatile and extreme? Do we see clear signs of recession or financial stress in major economies? Right now, my highest probability assessment is scenario A, brutal but contained. But the difference between A, B, and C is not academic. It's whether this war is a sharp shock systems absorb, or a grinding squeeze that reshapes politics, or a structural break that rewires parts of the global economy. The point of global power shifts is not to scare you or reassure you. It's to give you structure, a map of the crises, a profile of the people making decisions, and a view of which societies can ride the wave. From that, we build scenarios with clear assessments, so you can see what's coming into your fuel bill, your job market, and your politics before it hits. If you want more episodes like this, where we use Bathysphere, CPP, and SFI to cut through the noise, subscribe, leave a comment with the next flashpoint you want mapped, and share this with someone who is wondering why their costs just spiked.